Weird to look old and tired after a full week off after a Tuesday game. The Wilds, that was not great. 5-1 loss to the Washington Capitals. And I find myself sitting here, everybody, just wondering, what is the identity? What is the identity of this team? 5-on-5 play was non-existent, mainly because the Wilds can't score if they can't get set in the zone. And they can't get set in the zone unless they're on the power play. That feels like a problem that has to be addressed in a very major way as soon as possible. That was, I thankfully I didn't have any teeth that actually needed to get pulled, because I feel like I got a couple pulled already tonight. Let's sift through this game postcast time.
You are Locked On Wild Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 5-1 to the Washington Capitals in tonight's matchup. They're now 2-3 on the season. I'm kind of confused, to be honest, because the Wild played on Tuesday. They got to Washington. They had a couple of days off. They looked old. Against the Capitals. And 15 shots on goal, if not for a flurry in the last little bit of the game. They barely got over 10 shots on goal in this one. It's certainly a decent Washington team as far as they go defensively, but this team cannot enter the zone offensively. Like they can't even get the puck into the zone in 5-on-5. And the reason, think about this, the reason the power play has been so successful this year is because it gives the Wild an opportunity to get into the zone so they can get set up, because they can't enter the offensive zone at this point in the season. As I'll say, until it feels appropriate to hit the panic button, there's plenty of time to get all this righted, but man alive, they have one 5-on-5 goal since the opening game of the season. I could have seen Marcus Johansson scoring tonight from a mile away because former team, so you knew that was coming. But this is, we saw at least movement as far as line combinations go, but this is something this is work in progress. Doesn't feel like it's doing it enough justice, because you gotta get some things figured out here. Let's look at the stats, and we'll talk about the standouts here tonight as well. Here's the recap from the game tonight. As far as the shots on goal go, not the best for the Minnesota Wild. 45 shots on goal for the Washington Capitals. The Wild went 0 for 2 on the power play. 1 for 5 went the Washington Capitals. They scored in their final power play of the game. Rebound that kicked right to a waiting player and tapped it in, and was able to get that power play goal. Faceoffs dead even down the middle. Hits not a huge factor. Blocks slight edge to the Minnesota Wild. Obviously, one of the big things to keep an eye on in this game is the status of Zach Bogosian, who left early in the game. That certainly didn't help matters, because then you're down a D when your offense is not capable of generating much of anything. So that was dicey at best. As far as some of the deeper statistics go, the Minnesota Wild managed 1.82 expected goals They had 28 unblocked shot attempts. 22 of those were low danger. 5 were medium danger, and 1 was high danger. So that percentage is pretty much you get what you pay for. If you don't drive the net as an offense, you're going to have a very hard time scoring. You're going to have a very hard time consistently scoring. And it is the 5-on-5, the inability to even gain the zone is what is causing just so much strife as far as generating offense goes. The Capitals, meanwhile, they generated 4.95 expected goals. So Filip Gustavsson was slightly below average. I certainly don't put as much on him in this game. I know he needs to be way better, but think about the goals. Think about the goals that the Capitals scored tonight. They had the tap-in goal right next to Gustavsson. Defensive breakdown there as nobody cleared the front of the net. There was the weird rebounds that Gustavsson made the initial save. Puck went straight by Brock Faber and was picked up by the Capitals, who deposited it into the empty net. On and on down the line. Not the finest hour for the Minnesota Wild. Not the finest hour, but I'm seeing it a lot. I'm seeing it a lot in the comments. And I'm just gonna put it out there. Like as much as everybody wants to see a coach get fired, a GM get fired, an owner get replaced, it's not happening. It's not happening until much later into the season at the worst. So this is something that just has to get figured out. But think about this though. This is something that I think the team needs to take a much bigger look at. I heard John Hines talk about it after the Dallas game and leading up to the game tonight, that the team needs to get back to their identity. I would like to know what the identity is, because I don't feel like this team has one right now. And you talk about, getting the puck out of the zone quickly. That's a skill, that's a trait, that's a characteristic of a team, but that's not an identity. This is a team that, tries to play physical, tries to lean on that grit a little bit, to steal a phrase from Dean Evison, but they're quite undersized. They have a few players that can do that. Put a lot of the pressure on Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy to score the goals, because there just aren't a lot of other goal scorers on the team right now. I want to know what the identity is for this group. What are they? What do you hang your hat on? For this Washington team, it's clear that they press defensively and they force you to make quick decisions, and the Wild were completely unprepared for that in this game. And you need to just figure out, like, what are we good at? Like, what is our calling card? What do we hang our hat on? It's just like it just is not there at this point in the season. You have 77 games to figure it out. But, the thing that I go back to is what do we know about what this team has done over the last few years? They have put a lot of pressure on the top two lines, and by extension, they've put a lot of pressure on the top line to basically carry the offense, carry the party. That doesn't feel like that's a real sustainable model, if I'm being perfectly honest. you've got to find a way. You've got to find a way to inject life into that group. Now, we saw a lot of different combinations. We saw a lot of different combinations utilized in the game tonight. And honestly, the line that had the most consistent as far as expected goals for was the fourth line. William Ogren, Danil Yurov, and Vinny Hinostroza. They had the highest on-ice expected goals for, followed by Boldy, Rossi, and Tarasenko. But the numbers for the rest of these lines were pretty bad as far as expected goals go. There was only one goal scored. That was by the Marcus Johansson, Marco Rossi, Matt Boldy line. That line played 1 minute together, and they had an expected goals for of 0.05. When you're getting into BAC category as far as your expected goals go, that's not great. So tonight was the line blender, and I hope that it leads to a serious look at what is going to lead this team right now and what isn't. Because through the first 5 games of the season, it's been very uneven. Now, I would like to, for the standouts, I'd like to give Danil Yurov a nice pat on the back again. Because I thought he had another solid game. And I know we're still seeing some of the hiccups from Zeev Boyum, but Jesse and I talked about it in yesterday's episode. Growing pains. That's the theme for this year, is the growing pains, and how willing are the Minnesota Wild to allow this to play out, knowing that you're going to get better play from these guys in the lineup than you would get from the people that had been filling those spots before. And if you get the process going pretty early, as they have with Boyum and with Yurov, you can mitigate that. But if you are trying to, like, 20, 30 games into the season, if you're trying to continue to go with some of these low ceiling vets, then yeah, you're going to have a problem. And it's, as far as who needs to be better, like what needs to improve, I think the team needs to get on the same page. It looks very disjointed out there right now, and a lot of that is, the line blending process. But this is part of, hear me out on this too. This is part of the process, I think, that you have to deal with if you're not going to play your key guys in the preseason quite a bit. The Wild played their main players 1 or 2 games in the preseason. How are you supposed to get these combinations to gel? How are you supposed to get time with those guys? Practice is practice. I know I probably tooted the horn of the Ogren, Ek, Tarasenko line a little bit too much in practice, because I don't think they ever got into a game, maybe one time. How are you supposed to get line combinations to work if you don't give those guys requisite time together? So then you have to treat the early part of the season. You have to treat the early part of the season in figuring this out. That being said, you gotta, like, this is no different to me than the game that the Ottawa Senators had against Buffalo, where they lost like 8-4. You got to take those as opportunities to, like, hey guys, we need to clean some stuff up. Like, there's There's a lot of ironing to do at this point in the season. There's a lot to get ironed out. So that being said, Danila Yurov gets one of my standouts here tonight. Minnesota Wild offense gets a standout in a bad way. They have now 2 5-on-5 goals this season. And they had, so what were the total numbers? The Wild had 28 unblocked shot attempts. They had total, how many actual shot attempts did they have? They had a ton that were blocked, but they had a ton that just missed outright too. And so they had 14 blocked shots out of then, I hate doing math, 42. How about the Vinny Hinostroza all alone in front of the net, and he sends it wide from like 6 feet in front of the net. At that point, I'm like, okay, this is snake bit to say the least. But this is another point offensively to consider. So when you have as few shot attempts as the Wild had tonight, as far as shots on goal go, this is an inaccurate team to begin with. And this is a team that has a large portion of their shots blocked. So you are, if you attempt 100 shot attempts in a game, last year 33% of those shots were blocked, and 34 of them missed the net entirely. That's 67% of your shot attempts that don't get to the goalie. So you are leaving yourself 33% roughly of the shot attempts that actually get to the net. And if you can't get to the goalie, if you're shooting from the perimeter, those easy spots, and you don't have somebody in front of the net that can screen the goalie, you're not going to have a good time. And we certainly didn't tonight. I think pretty much every line combination was out attempted here this evening. Kaprizov, Hartman, and Tarasenko were out attempted 11-0 in their time on the ice. Boldy, Eriksson-Ek, and Kaprizov was out attempted 5-2. Boldy, Rossi, Kaprizov was in positive territory as far as attempts go at 6-4. But until they can get that second line figured out, we are not going to see Kaprizov and Boldy together very often. You have to get that spot figured out. These are the problems that have been dragging this team for, I don't know, since 2021, 2022, since the last time they had a legitimate anchor presence on that second line. Kevin Fiala. That was the last time the Wild had a legitimate anchor presence on that second line. And you were never gonna, the Wild made their choice. They were never going to re-sign Fiala, so they made the trade. They brought Brock Faber in. And as Jesse and I talked about, feels like Faber is a couple of degrees off from where he was in his rookie season. Just a little bit off, and I don't know if it's an injury. I don't know if it's that he is basically being asked to do everything. I don't know what it is, but it's It's noticeable for those that follow the team. It's not a huge difference, but it's noticeable. So I don't know. Like, this is a point in the season. Like, I'm not like a rock bottom situation or anything. It can get far worse. It can get far worse, but this should be one of those losses that you kind of take a step back and you look at, because you got dragged up and down the ice for 60 minutes. And it looks like at this point the car's kind of on autopilot. And the thing that stood out to me, I'll keep repeating it. The thing that stood out to me tonight is they just looked old. This roster just looked old. And they have been far older in previous seasons, but you don't see it show through that often. And having a couple of days off in front of a back-to-back and looking like this on the first night, not ideal. Let's see if we've got any quotes. I'm not sure who is following the team here. Okay, it's Joe Smith. So we are in elite hands. Let's see what Joe Smith has to say as far as comments go, and then we'll take a break and we'll kind of regroup here. John Hines, no update on Zach Bogosian in the post game. Brock Faber said that's just unacceptable from top to bottom. He's right. Those are the only updates that we have so far. So this feels like a good, I don't want to say team only meeting, closed door meeting, but this feels like a real good opportunity to just, hey, we got to be better up and down the board. Because that was not great. Let's break. We'll take a little bit of a look ahead to tomorrow's game, because you go from playing Washington to the Wild playing Philly tomorrow, and we all know that Philly is just a joy to play against. So we'll talk about that game as well. And I think since so many are doing it in the comments, we'll ceremoniously fire somebody tonight. Ceremoniously, of course, because I don't have any real power. But we'll talk about all that as we continue tonight's postcast. Wild fall 5-1. They were mostly just offensive as opposed to having offense. I don't know why I think that joke is funny. It's really not. We'll break. More postcast coming up. Today's postcast is brought to you by Game Time. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Did you know prices on Game Time actually go down the closer you get to the opening face-off? So if you are feeling spontaneous, and I think we all should have a little more spontaneity in our lives, you get rewarded at Game Time by getting ticket prices that are cheaper as opposed to buying them out in advance. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Tonight's postcast also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is in full swing, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Minnesota Vikings taking on the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. And the Vikings are still underdogs in this one. It's 1.5 points for Philly. I still feel optimistic about the Minnesota Vikings, so I would take the Vikings plus 1.5. And if that wins, then you can put the rest on Matt Boldy to win the heart. He had another point tonight. Who knows? You might end up being a big winner, courtesy of FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Minnesota Wild lose by a score of 5-1. And let's do this because there are certainly things that need to change. And I'm gonna put some dirt on the coffin of the Pete DeBoer train. Pete DeBoer certainly has had success at all of his stops since he has been a coach, but he has been run out of every spot he has coached, whether it be San Jose, whether it be Vegas, whether it be Dallas. He's been run out of every spot that he's coached because after a certain point, he starts to kind of get into some drama situations with his players. Jake Ottinger, Marc-Andre Fleury. List goes on and on. He ain't fixing that. He ain't fixing that. And I don't know. I think we overblow considerably the John Hines doesn't like rookie players. I challenge you to find me a coach in the NHL, and please comment in videos all this week. I challenge you to find me a coach that does not do similar things to what, as far as playing young players. It happens all over the league. It is a league-wide problem. It is a league-wide position, playing veterans over young players. Up and down the NHL, they do it. So if you can find me somebody that doesn't have to do it out of necessity, San Jose Sharks, Anaheim Ducks don't count. They have to do it out of necessity. Chicago has to do it out of necessity. Montreal is about the only team that did so to develop. And obviously, there are other examples, but like this whole talking point of John Hines hates rookies. He doesn't want to see them succeed. He doesn't want to see them play meaningful minutes in the lineup. It's overblown. He certainly has his faults. We're seeing them on full display, but like we can dampen that anytime now. Like it's roster construction. If you want to point to roster construction, that's the biggest issue. It's how this roster is constructed and what these players on this roster do. And on the flip side, don't do. I think what I would like to see tomorrow is Ryan Hartman get a chance in that top six. Ben Jones is with the team. Ben Jones can play center. Give Urhoff a chance at the third C. See if Ryan Hartman can solve the issues with that second line scoring. I feel like you need shooters in that spot. And to this point, like what was Tarasenko? What did he have for numbers here tonight? Should have had that up. Actually, I did. Tarasenko tonight had 1 shot on goal in 14 minutes. A guy that has notoriously shot the puck throughout his career. Like, I don't know if he just doesn't really see where he fits at this point. I don't know if he just doesn't see where he fits on the roster at this point, but he has been a guy throughout his career that has really not been afraid to shoot the puck. Do you trust Billy to actually trade and make changes to the roster that will get us a win, though? He's the architect of this disaster. I mean, he's made deals in the past. I have to assume that he's going to do it again. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, what are we doing here? If we have the outcome predetermined, what is the point? What is the point of sitting here talking about the games if we already know how the season's going to play out? If we know that there's no way to fix it? Like, what are we doing? Yeah, fire everybody. That's always the answer. Let's talk about the Flyers. Team fire everybody and burn it to the ground. You're not going to get your way in Game 5. Are you going to fire Kirill then too? You're going to fire Boldy? You're going to fire Judd Brackett? Lord have mercy. The Philadelphia Flyers so far this year are 1-2-1. They just lost to the Winnipeg Jets 5-2. Their lone win this year is against the Florida Panthers 5-2. And this is a Philly team that's got a little bit in the way of young talent, but not a ton. And I mean, it just has to be way better. It's got to be much better than it was tonight. And I don't know that we need to. I don't know that we need to super boil it down beyond that. You can't say it's a roster construction issue, then say the guy who built it should keep his job. I guess so. Do I need to spend every episode every day for the rest of the season saying Bill Guerin needs to be fired, John Hines needs to be fired? Do I need to publicly have that position for everybody to be satisfied every day for the rest of the season until it happens? Says John Hines, all over the ice, we weren't at a level, I would say, from a speed perspective and a competitive perspective to give ourselves a chance to win. He's not wrong. Brock Faber. Where's Scotty Bowman on a retirement? All right, everybody. I think I'm going to get on to the rest of my Friday. Enjoy the game tomorrow, and we'll be back with you on Monday with an episode with Alex. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 5-1 tonight. We'll see who has their jobs when we come back on Monday.